5Options show, where every week Marta and Anna abandon their 5 children, 2 partners and 1 cat to make a show especially for you. An artist, a challenge, a bullshit, a wisdom and a surprise. Tune in and feel the magic of 5.
But you can have those situations where, yes, you are privileged enough that person really earns a lot of money and can support the entire family, but you can really lower down your life standard significantly because that's your value, priority, or whatever you call it.
I think that's another level, because I believe that what happened to women in Western, I will just use it for simplification to make a point. Western societies, we got empowered, officially empowered to enter the workforce and so on. And we started to, as you mentioned, kill ourselves. You know, you have to be a perfect mother, perfect wife, have a career, be beautiful, all these kind of things. It's still a kind of a stigma that is in the Western societies, and we are trying to shake it off. And now I think those women are trying to find themselves and balance themselves. That's why there is so many events right now popular, you know, balancing yourself, finding your true self as a mother, as a woman, and so on. But I think the other countries, when the women still don't have the same variety of rights, are not there. So they will probably go through the same circle as we did. They will enter the workforce and they will try to do career, and then probably learning on their own experience, they will know, okay, this is also stupid because now I'm killing myself for nothing, you know, not for nothing, for having everything when it's not necessarily possible. And I will have to, although I agree there are exemptions and now people are making more conscious decisions, and I see this trend, I will have to agree with Dennis that it comes from the place of a privilege, especially in a country like Denmark, when if you will resign from job and stay with kids, country will help you with different things. For instance, you will get rent subsidized because your overall income and the number of children, I know because now I have my rent subsidized and I am on maternity leave. So they can count all the things that you have as an income in the household. They count number of children, and they actually give you a huge rent relief. And there are other things that are contributing to this. So also depends on the economy you are in or the country you are in. You can actually afford yourself to stay at home because the country has your back. But Denmark is not, that's not a system that is everywhere. Let's just face it. That's an extreme example of a country that is taking care of their citizens. So that's also another thing. Interesting discussion, guys. I guess we have to jump to bullshit then, huh?
Say what? It's bullshit. It's bullshit of the week. Bullshit. What?
Yes, so the bullshit of the week. I wanted to come back to the topic that was actually haunting me. I don't know, was it hunting me or haunting? How do you pronounce it? Because one is when you hunt animals.
Haunting.
Haunting, like a ghost?
Yeah.
Haunting.
Yeah.
A Dane is teaching me the English pronunciation. That is fantastic. Haunting, you are right. It was haunting me, that kind of a perception of poor people being responsible for overpopulation and in general, like all the bad things, you know. We had a bit about this, and I think we can actually play it right now. One guy whose name is Thomas Malthus, he was an economist in 18th century Great Britain, who was very concerned about the population, and his overall argument was that one day population will outstrip resources, focusing primarily on food. He observed that food production grew arithmetically, while population growth was exponential. It was only a matter of time before the population overtook our ability to produce food. In his opinion, this would lead to mass starvation, wars, and chaos, and he believed we as species cannot manage our ability to reduce our procreation. Therefore, he argued against helping the poor. He believed that the source of overpopulation is caused by the poor, which he compared to breeding rabbits. Secondly, he believed that helping the poor would only prolong the overall agony. Have you heard this statement before, that it's the poor of the countries, of all the developing countries, that are contributing to overpopulation?
I have heard that before, yes.
Yes, because that is as old as 18th century. And poor people are, I will quote unquote now, to blame for overpopulation.
Well, definitely don't believe in blaming here.
Yes.
Absolutely nothing to blame.
Yes.
That I strongly disagree
Yes.
on the blaming part. But I have heard that statement.
Yeah, so Marta, you have heard that statement.
Yes, definitely.
And Dennis, you have heard that statement for sure as well, right?
Yeah.
And it came from that guy, from Thomas Robert Malthus. He was the first that actually formulated this absolutely amazing theory, and he actually called it a cycle of misery. So very catchy name for it, because he claimed that, people breed like rabbits. That's again, quote unquote, that's actually his comparison, and there is too many of them, and there are natural things like famine and starvation, and the unnatural one like wars come in and decrease population. So then the land can regrow and rebuild to feed a next generation, and when that will grow, it will again, famine will come, and it's a circle of misery. What I didn't tell you is that this theory have contributed to a lot of horrible things, and the first one was the Irish potato famine in 1846. Oh, I'm not sure if my microphone is working.
No,
Yeah,
it's me
Martha turned
accidentally.
it down.
I turn it down instead of mine. Sorry.
Uh,
Is it good again?
I can hear myself, and
Yeah.
actually it was quite funny. I was like, oh, we are live, and maybe I'm not here anymore.
Is it good now?
Yes, I can hear myself.
Okay, sorry for that.
This is another proof that we are live on air. So, guys, it's a story of an Irish potato famine in 1846 till 1851. So it was relatively shortly after the guy came up with this,
But it's not
theory.
the one that you told us last time?
Did I tell you about the famine in Irish potato famine? No, I didn't.
No? Okay, I thought that.
I know when I told you that. I told you that on the Ledbanen station where we
Okay.
were waiting for the... Yes, but now, Marta, I want to tell it to everyone.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
I thought it
No.
was on the show.
Yes, I know. Sometimes it gets confusing, because I also have a feeling we talked about something, but actually we talked in private.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to tell you, to illustrate something for you, and why I think it's actually dangerous. Because that famine in 1846 to 1851 caused 1 million Irish people to die of starvation, diseases, and violence. And it was caused by the fact that one string of potatoes that they were mainly growing in Ireland got some sort of a mold, and those potatoes basically were lost. They were rotten, and they didn't have any crops. Irish could have access other string of potatoes or vegetables, but it was restricted by English officials represented by colonial master Charles Trevelyan, yes, I think that this is how you pronounce his name, who specifically ordered not to give aid nor allow anyone else to give it either. So basically, that's what Malthus was saying. Don't aid the poor, because you will only prolong their misery. So he blocked American ships with corn who came to the rescue, and he allowed Irish farms to grow other types of vegetables, but then he confiscated them and sold them straight to England. It was, of course, dictated by hundreds of years of hatred between Catholic Ireland and Protestant England, but Malthusian theory had also a role to play, because it was actually a justification. So in a century before the famine, Irish population grew significantly, and many English thinkers saw the famine as an outcome of Malthus' predictions. From this point of view, providing food or aid to the Irish was pointless. It could only delay the cycle of misery. Colonial master Charles Trevelyan, I learned that, He said that the only remedy to starving was for Irish to die, and corpses should be a reminder to survivors not to have sex. And now a quote: "The judgment of God sent the calamity to teach the Irish a lesson, and that calamity must be not too much mitigated. The real evil which we have content is not the physical evil of famine, but the moral evil of selfish, perverse, and turbulent character of the people." So that was the very first time that poor people were, let's say, victims of this, theory that poor people are responsible for overpopulation. So if something bad happens to them, we don't aid them because then it will self-regulate themselves. I think it was not even about leaving the things to the natural course of things. It was actually actively stopping the aid. And the huge exodus of Irish people that happened in 19th century to the US, because there is plenty of Irish people in US, was actually caused by that famine. And people were going on the boats, and they were called coffin boats because third of people died. It was horrible conditions. They were running away from Ireland just to run away from starvation and death. So, my question is stupid, because I wanted to ask you, do you I cannot even ask you that. Like, what do you think about this? Because I still see sometimes like people saying, oh, those poor people in Africa, they are, I don't know, quote unquote now, I would like to say, they cannot generate everything. I'll let them deal with their own problems. Let them just, starving, because they don't know how to breed food or whatsoever. There are voices like this, that the helping doesn't really make sense. What do you think about this?
Well, it's a very complex topic. So just to say in very few words, I mean, first of all, your question is very complex.
It is a very complex question, yes.
So, yes, helping poor people can be damageful when you are just providing stuff to them and they keep on not learning that skill that they are missing. That may have some downsides to it. So there is a type of help, that you can think about. So you can give the tools instead of giving the just providing the food, for example, right? You can give.
Yeah, you mean the good old, don't give man a fish, give him a fishing rod to.
Yeah, so you can give him a fish so that he's strong enough to then use the fishing rod again as well. So I can understand. I mean, it's such a big topic. I mean, yes, I definitely believe that from a place of privilege and from a place of being entitled, empowered, or whatever, we have here in the Western world, yes, I think we all should be helping. Then the way we should be helping can be, questionable and can be, something that you can individually find for yourself. That's the way you want to do it. For example, my way of helping is by paying for education to little girls that are raised in this underprivileged. Can you say underprivileged? No. Unprivileged? No. Non-privileged? I don't know. In poor countries, right? So that's, for example, what I believe in. Giving these children then receive food, receive clothes, receive access to education. That's, for example, something I believe is a good way of helping. Someone else can see it in a different way. I really think that any approach, any statement, you versus them, any statement of againstness, the rich ones are to blame or the poor ones are to blame, is already causing a problem. So I definitely would go away 10 steps back from saying whose fault it is. That's the first thing, and would learn how we can help each other, how we can be in it together, how we can support each other, how can we redistribute. Yes. Second of all, that guy have that travestarian, what was his name?
I learned to pronounce it, so I will pronounce Trevelyan, Charles Trevelyan.
that guy has generated for himself some karma, huh? I mean, so cruel.
Honestly, burn in hell, wherever you are. Charles.
It's difficult. It's difficult to imagine how you can come to these kind of conclusions and take action on it. It's very difficult to,
I don't know if you know, guys, but in Ireland there are people who are calling this a genocide. They don't call it a famine of 19th century. They call it as a genocide because those were planned ways of English Empire on how to stop the aid. Can you imagine that? That's so. Marta, you are right. Karma, burn in hell. I'm sorry. I don't know how, but I guess I understand now why Ireland wanted to be independent. That gives me a new outlook because I didn't know about this. I knew about other famines and starvations like in Ukraine and Belarus at the beginning of 20th century, courtesy of Stalin. Yeah, we learned that at school. So of course we are a bit biased with those information. And also in China there was a starvation caused by Mao and his very creative politics. But yeah, burn in hell. Charles Trevelyan. Oh my God, I hope that he will not come to haunt me.
I find it very scary, though, that the idea, the theory, the thoughts, they survive today.
They survive today.
You basically just described Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, where the poor are morally inferior.
Exactly.
And the rich are entitled and
exactly.
they are superior.
Mm-hmm.
And the poor brought it on themselves. They don't deserve anything. They don't deserve help. They are inferior people.
Those thoughts, unfortunately, are still prevailing in some circles. And I find it extremely dangerous. And I actually think that this is dehumanizing for people. If you are branded as poor, and all those things, you are being dehumanized, because if you would see these people starving with little children, normal empathy level person would want to help do something. But if you will call them poor and breeding like rabbits, and of course, there were many labels we were giving over centuries to different groups of people, less intelligent, barbarians, savage, or and that I find extremely dangerous, because that is something I have seen even today. That poor people, they that's their fate. We will not get into discussion how poor people became poor in countries that are the most richest in natural resources, because I don't have time or knowledge to make a lecture about colonialism. But yeah, I'm happy that at least we are on the page that Charles Trevelyan should get his karma.
It's just undescribable, uncommentable, and
Genocide is the right word to use about it, because you know what will happen, and you plan it, and you stop aid from other countries. You want people to die.
Yeah, exactly. So after this very grim example, we are coming back to the last one. Do we have the last clip?
We do.
The most interesting fact that I found here is actually not necessarily that we are overpopulated, but we are not distributing our resources and food wisely. Yes, you can actually hear the outro playing, because that is all I had to say at that time, because I had no time. And I see we have 13 minutes to continue, and I don't know how I will go through this entire show. And we actually talked with Marta about this, that there are so many talk shows, podcasts, and they basically have different lengths depending on the episode, on how the discussion was rolling. For instance, even Joe Rogan, he has 2.5 hours episodes, then he has 3, then he has 1 hour and a half. We always have to stick to 1 hour, and we have 3 people here in the studio. So guys, if we won't be able to go through the time capsule, I'm very sorry. And probably I will not compensate for that. Because I have enough of compensation. But that was the last thing I wanted to talk regarding overpopulation, and that was, the view that there will be too many people and we will not have enough food, water, and shelter for them, and also the whole footprint, the the environmental footprint and all the CO2 emissions and all of that. So we have to stop. But I think I mentioned in the last show that we are currently overproduced food, that we produce half more than we need, and that from that a lot of goes to waste, or it goes to feeding the animals, which become our other food. And I had gathered a couple of interesting facts here. And number one, it is not about how many people the earth can accommodate, but how many rich people earth can accommodate. That is statement number one. And statement number two, people from developing countries are still the scapegoat, blamed for overpopulation. But if we take into consideration consumption of resources, it is the Western civilization to be blamed. And the example was, it takes more water to cultivate lawns, Dennis, help me, that grass that is in front of the house? Lawns in America than to water all the crops. So there is more water used to water the grass in front of your house than it is to actually water the crops in America. Interesting, huh? If you live in a developed country like Japan, Denmark, or Poland and have food, fridge, Wi-Fi, hot water, you on average consume as much as 32 Kenyans. As for environmental footprint and CO2 emissions, if you live in America and you emit 165 times more than a person in Uganda, Rwanda, Somalia, or Chad. 165 more times of CO2 emissions. Guys, what do you think about these wonderful facts? I think we had that discussion, Dennis, just before I started the show last week. And you said that it is actually about the level of aspiration for the rest of the world, that if everyone should have a computer, everyone should have a mobile, everyone should have nice clothes, everyone should, we can continue, then yes, indeed, we are in trouble. We are in big trouble because Earth resources cannot sustain that.
I don't know the numbers, but I assume that if everybody has to have a laptop and a TV and a computer screen and blah, 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 all the things that we take for granted, there would be a need for resources on a scale that we cannot imagine.
I think I've seen somewhere there is a web page, and I will try to find it and put the link to show notes. You can actually put a data in of your consumption, where you live, what you own, and so on. And it will calculate how many Earths does your lifestyle need if everyone would have the same lifestyle as you. And one woman made a test like this with her class at university. And if everyone would, from people that exist right now, if everyone would consume as they consumed, you would need 6 Earths. So I actually, I will try to find that, a link, and I will calculate it for myself. With my consumption levels, if everyone would have to have exactly the same level of living as I do, and I don't have a car, that will be funny. How many Earths would we need? Guys, what do you think about it? That, you know, as we just said, poor people are blamed for overpopulation because of the reasons that we mentioned, yet it looks like it's not about accommodation of everyone. It's about, you know, maintaining a certain lifestyle, and it's the rich people that are consuming the most. Any reflections on that?
We need more Earths.
We need more Earths. I think that's a very good reflection. Marta? Marta looks depressed. I don't know. It's like, is it because of that Irish potato famine story?
No, it's that it's very difficult to comment on this kind of statements when you have 5 minutes left. And I think that my statement already on the famine was completely bullshit because of it's just, I don't see a way to comment on it in any meaningful way in a short amount of time.
But what do you think? Challenge of the week. We don't have to put a jingle because that's 20 seconds I cannot afford to lose. How can we survive when the population hits 10 billion and we will have, let's say, the same requirements that we have right now. What are your ideas? Because I actually have two fancy theories. I can very briefly tell you what are they, and then you will tell me at which side you are. There is a guy whose name is Charles Seaman, and he's a writer and a journalist, and he was very much haunted by this question, how we will survive when the Earth will hit 10 billion. Everyone wants to have those things that we have. And he made a lot of interviews with scientists and thought thinkers, and he divided them into groups: prophets and wizards. And now you can tell me if you feel like you are a prophet or a wizard. So wizards, or rather techno-wizards, basically believe that science and technology properly applied can let us produce our way out of our dilemmas. Prophets believe that there are natural limits and we transgress these limits at our peril, meaning serious dangers. So basically wizards believe that we have to go with the technological progress even more, use more green energy, invest in technology, invest in more and more industrial ways on producing food, including GMO, so genetically modified food. And that the future should look like that we live in mega cities where people are kind of clustered there and using this wonderful benefits of technology, and the rest of the land is left, let's say, as some sort of like a wasteland that can regrow naturally. And they are also for the nuclear energy. The prophets believe that people should come back to living in small communities, small villages, that they should be more self-reliant, more self-independent, that there should be no centralization of the energy or the food industry, that everyone should learn how to do it themselves, and we should be spread all over the planet, because there is a lot of place actually on planet Earth, and we should come back to more community-oriented, smaller, I don't know, cities, villages, or something like that. What speaks to you better? Like feeling-wise, not necessarily data, but feeling-wise.
If I had to choose, if there was like a gun to my head and I have to choose one, then the prophets, the latter one, small communities and stuff. But if I am to give my honest opinion, I think the only way out of it is integrative approach, where you integrate the similarities or the best things of all the possible approaches, and you find a completely new way of doing it.
You hit bingo, Marta, because he also have finished his one of his TED Talks with a sudden thought, and he said, the problem is those guys don't talk to each other, and prophets don't understand that in order to sustain those communities, because the prophets want to use the solar energy and all those kind of things, they need wizards and their technological progress. But the wizards don't understand that there is a lot of things that prophets can offer, and they don't talk to each other. It is still on a very argumentative side, because although the arguments are pragmatic, it is actually, in the end of the day, about lifestyle and values. Do you want to live in smaller communities? You don't want to be controlled by the one big government? What you actually prefer to live as, right? So that is that is a bingo, because he actually said that he's very sad that they don't understand that they should actually talk with each other and combine those both thoughts of solving the overpopulation problem. Dennis?
I agree with Marta. When you're putting together a budget for anything, if you use one economic theory, you are bound to fail. You need to take the best from everything. And that goes for science, that goes for everything. You need to take the best solutions for any kind of problem and implement that.
And the funny thing is that he said that the overall feel is that we are living in a times when the prophet philosophy is more close to heart, to people, that people tend to believe in that more or want that more. Yet it is the wizards that are like dictating the reality, that we actually live in the time of wizards. So very interesting finishing thought. Thank you very much, our lovely listeners, for being here with us. And we hope that you will tune in next week. Marta, thank you very much for being here. Dennis,
Thank
you're
you.
cool.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.